Welcome to the JBJ Management Podcast. I'm Willis Johnson, and today our guest is the president and CEO of the Trinity Park Conservancy. I'm so used in the hood saying Dr. Tony Moore, but it can be Dr. Tony Moore. It's
just Tony Moore, Dr. Johnson.
Thank you for being here today. We appreciate it. Tony Moore comes from where, though?
So it depends on who you ask, but I am from Jamaica to Florida, from Florida to St. Louis, so St. Louis back to Florida, Florida to Tulsa, and Tulsa to Dallas.
Let's talk about Jamaica. I've only as a tourist, and I actually, years ago, I was doing a television show, and we spent a week or so.
Is that right?
Ochos Rios, Montego Bay. We did not go to Kingston. They told us there's two places they told us.
Stay out of the urban core, huh?
Don't go to Kingston and don't go in the hills. Well, interestingly enough, the last time I was in Jamaica, I went in the hills. I had a wonderful time. I had the food.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
From the earth.
Organic food, and we don't call it organic. In fact, the crazy thing is you have Jamaicans longing to have pasta and not realizing the foreign mind mentality, that the organic food is so strong. And I'll tell you, if you had gone to Kingston, you'd also have had a different mindset. It's one of the most economically developed, advanced cities in the Caribbean. And so, Jamaica is an interesting island of 3 million. There's almost the same amount of Jamaicans abroad than living in Jamaica. But their reach, the saying is you can go to any country and you'll probably find a Jamaican restaurant there.
Why?
Just how Jamaicans are abroad. I went to Iceland, and this was in the late 80s. We're not a lot of brothers there. There was a U.S. base there, but the other brother I saw, wouldn't you know, I was happy to see a brother, and I went across, hey, man, what's up? How you doing? Jamaican. So Jamaicans have this mentality of exploration and about establishing themselves in other countries, and so that's just part of who we are.
Well, I remember I was talking to a lady who was a maid in Jamaica, and her desire was to get to Chicago. She says, I want to see Chicago. She sees it on television. She says, I'm saving my money to get out. What did you do to get out? Did you want to get out or what?
So, it's depends on who you speak with. So there's definitely the foreign mind mentality. Obviously, America, the land of opportunity. Everyone wants to come here for a chance to make a better life, and that's the number one driver, is the economic opportunity. But I'll tell you, the culture in Jamaica is of such that a lot of Jamaicans don't want to go. So I did not want to leave. I was having the time of my life. It's just after high school, playing soccer, the food, the culture, the people, the music. I didn't want to leave, but my parents lived in Florida, and I had to get here before I was 18 to be an adult under the immigration's filing. So my dad filed for me to come here really just to go to college, and what was just for college ended up being a lifetime at least, for now, yeah.
So from that point, and now, you are the CEO of one of the most iconic, most talked about parks basically in the history of Dallas. Tell me about the gap. How did you get from 18 to building Harold Simmons Park? What happens?
GOG, grace of God, man. So when I went to Florida, Willis, I went for college. I went to Central Florida, and don't hold that against me, man. Fastest, second largest university in the U.S. So I needed a part-time job, and my cousin Marvin Houghton worked at Disney, and he's like, "Hey, man, I got you for Disney, right?" And I didn't have a car my first month, so I said, I'm just going to work at SeaWorld. It's close by, and when I get my car, I'll just pop to Disney. And so I started working at SeaWorld. and it was SeaWorld is like the smaller of the big three, but it was nimble. The folks were kind, and this is in the late 80s. And man, I just love the culture, and one thing led to another. Willis, they handed me a pen and a broom, and I was like, they're like, you got to sweep, keep your area clean. And I had all kind of psychological mentalities of being handed a broom, coming from Jamaica, and I did not have to work, never worked. This was my first job in college, and I was like, I ain't sweeping nobody's floor, man. What if somebody recognized me and I'm the dude that was playing soccer and thought I was somebody? So I'd eat some humble pie, man. You know, Martin Luther King says, whatever you do, do it to the best of your ability. If you're a sweeper, sweep to the best of your ability.
That's what he said.
That's what he said. I didn't know it then. And so, you know, I got to a point, I actually went in the parking lot and saw, I like cars, right? And I saw all these cars and I was like, you know, these guys, this doesn't define them. You know, they had nice cars. It was just a job. And again, I'm new in the U.S. at this point, Willis. And you know, Jamaican has these caste systems as you grow up from you know, different economics. And
I was going to ask you about that.
It does.
And it's a color system.
It does. The motto of Jamaica is "Out of many, one people," and that was made first by Jamaica after independence. Out of many, one people. It started out with the indigenous Indians. We call them the Arawak Indians or the Tahinos. Then it was the Spaniards who colonized Jamaica first, and the English took over from the Spanish. And from the English, after then came slavery, sugarcane, number one industry at the time. And then after slavery was abolished, indentured servants. So they brought in Chinese and Indians, and some of my relatives came from South China. So it's this mixing pot. And just like nations of dark, the caste system's by color. And so same here in the U.S., you know, if somebody's of lighter complexion, you tend to get a different response than if someone of very dark complexion, right? And so it's not as prevalent now, but coming out of colonial days, it certainly was, because the benchmark was how the English did things. I was more English than I knew until I went to England and was like, what? It's the same customs. You know, I did not realize being an English colony how much you pick up. So fast forward then in Florida, you know, being asked to sweep the floor. And the moment that I decided, Willis, that if I sweep, I'm going to be the best sweeper. And I took such pride in it. When at the end of the night, when you close an area, it has to be guest ready for the morning. And I started developing what I'm using now, but didn't know it then, right? It's a quality, it's the consistency of the upkeep, it's the grounds management. And Willis, I became the best sweeper they had ever seen. At the end of the night, they close you out with a flashlight to make sure it gets ready. And my pride was to have no debris on the ground.
Well, is that where the love for parks came? Was that the seed that was planted?
So I loved parks from when I was in Jamaica. There was a park called Hope Gardens, an amusement park. But my knowledge and full engagement, it started by being a sweeper in parks. And I'll tell you this, Willis, about a month after I embraced my job and started being the best, they asked me if I wanted to be promoted into a leadership position. A month later, after I embraced what I had to do.
What'd you decide to do?
So I was still in college, and I was like, man, that's going to mess with my college because, you know, college first. And it was a good company that worked around my college. And so I took what's called a lead position, entry-level leadership. And even then, I was about 18, and I remember bragging to everyone that I was bottom-level management. And one of my friends, his name is Gerald McCoy, he would crack up at the pride I took in saying bottom-level management because, you know, I was a business major, had not graduated yet, but I embraced the fact that I was part of the leadership team. And if you fast forward, it went from SeaWorld to Universal, several different SeaWorld parks, Aquatica, Busch Gardens, Discovery Cove, and then from there I had a chance. I worked at the corporate headquarters. SeaWorld at the time was owned by Anheuser-Busch. 5% of Anheuser-Busch as a beer company was their parks attractions because the parks provide a goodwill for what was then against all the special interest groups with alcohol. And so I worked at the headquarters for a while, did some work internationally. And then after working at SeaWorld for a while, I had a chance to, I went to Universal Studios but then went back to SeaWorld in a different capacity. I helped Universal to open a new park then called Adventure Island. After going back to SeaWorld, I got involved in marketing. And so I wasn't just an operational guy. I did about 5 years in marketing, and then I did some years in safety. After the unfortunate incident with the killer whale and the trainer, I became the safety guy for their Florida parks. I did some work in culinary.
The best way to be safe from a killer whale.
Stay out of the water, right?
Yeah. There's nothing they can do on the land.
Not many brothers in the water except for Joe McCoy. But it was just a great experience there. But with my zoological background, I had an opportunity to be the COO for Zoo Tampa, then called Tampa's Lowry Park Zoo. And then from there, a headhunter called me to go to Oklahoma.
Florida to Oklahoma. How much of a cultural shock was that?
Look, when the headhunter called and said, would you be interested in this job? You know, she said, Tulsa. And I was like, Tulsa? Tucson? I said, Tucson? I could deal with Tucson in Arizona. Tulsa? And I saw Oklahoma. I was like, yeah, I'm not going. So I told the headhunter straight up, I said, you know what? I'm close to accepting a job in China, and I'm going to go to China. There's no way I'm going to go to Tulsa, Oklahoma.
But you ended up in Tulsa.
I went, Willis, and I met the George Kaiser Family Foundation. And George Kaiser, if you don't know who he is, he's one of the billionaires that are part of the billionaire pledge to give away all their earnings, and he's spending his money in his beloved Tulsa. And I met Jewish-owned, but passionate for the community, passionate for the underserved. And Willis, for the first time, I looked at my career not through the lens of generating revenue, but about social impact. And it helped that this was a $465 million project, and that the foundation, now it's a $5 billion foundation. It's the second largest family foundation in the U.S. And so based on the ownership, based on the culture, I knew nothing about the race massacre, nothing. Zero knowledge. And so I was the blissful park guy.
We keep a picture up here in our office so that people will know.
It's important. And, you know, the front pages was ripped away. You can't find the front pages. It was intentional to hide it. I've had folks who said it was unfortunate, but let's not talk about it. But the foundation I worked for says if you don't talk about it, then you'll make the same mistake twice.
Which leads me to Dallas, because I have a harsh thought process from time to time about Dallas, because it is a tale of two cities, and your project is right on the line. People always divide Dallas along the Trinity. So tell me about your transition from Tulsa to Dallas.
So Tulsa prepared me for Dallas in more ways than one. It prepared me, and obviously we had a chance to work on an awesome project called The Gathering Place, which was nationally recognized as one of the best parks in the country, still is. I had a chance.
People from everywhere go to see The Gathering Place in Tulsa.
Willis, do you know that the second most visited demographic to Tulsa comes from Dallas?
Wow.
First is Tulsa, third is Oklahoma City, second is Dallas.
Unbelievable.
4-hour drive. So yeah, learned a lot from that experience, and the same designers that did The Gathering Place is also doing Harold Simmons Park. And so we're taking all the learnings, but I tell everyone, we're not trying to create The Gathering Place. We will create a park that's very Dallas-centric and unique for Dallas. So coming to Dallas, you know, I'll be honest, man. Willis Johnson, you were one of two individuals that were honest with me in trying to help me to understand what I was being, the situation as it was with the Harold Simmons Park, with the delays and the fatigue and the politics. I had no idea outside of the insight you gave me on that call what I was getting in. The other person is Pastor Parker. He actually asked me, "Where you want to come?" And I was like, dude, that's an interesting question to ask in an interview. But I really thought that the project was close to starting. I thought things were a lot more.
How many years ago was that?
3 years ago. 3.5 years to be exact. 3.5.
And you thought, how close were you to kicking off the park?
I thought where we are today is where we were 3.5 years ago. I thought, in 3 years we'd get this park built, and I had no idea, and I don't think anyone truly knew, because I call it was a state of dust. The dust hadn't settled yet, and they hadn't appropriately assessed the strategy, what they needed to do, the geography. I think they were hopeful and had to be hopeful because of all the fatigue. We received that $50 million from Annette Simmons, and it's almost 8 years, and we're just kicking it off. And I don't want to get ahead, but I did not fully grasp or understood where the park was when I accepted the job.
Well, it's probably a 25-year dust.
Wow.
Because the first vote was in 1999. And so there's been this thing, the Trinity. Yeah. But recently, you actually moved dirt. Let's talk about that day. What does that mean?
I'm going to go back to my, about a month after I got here, Tim Rogers from D Magazine asked to interview me. And, I thought it was going to be like Tulsa, where it's like, oh, welcome to Dallas. So happy to have you. And that interview by Tim Rogers, I was like, whoa, Dallas is different. But, later I had a chance to speak with Tim, and he says, Tony, you don't understand the fatigue this project has had in the ebb and flows, the up and downs, the start again, the stop again. And I understood why the tone of that initial conversation was as such. And so when I go out now, Willis, and every time I speak, I often get asked, is it really happening this time? Because there had been so much start and stop and different renditions and different concepts. And I get it. I totally get it. And confidence is the thing you earn. And we had not earned or had the credibility up until now. And so there are a lot of folks, Dee Dee Rose, Margaret Hoffman, Pastor Parker, the TPC board, yourself, a lot of folks working hard to bring this park to fruition. And so October 22nd, a little over a week ago, almost at a week ago, we met a very significant milestone. And that, Willis, was the clearing of the site that we will build this 250-acre park. And that was quite significant for Dallas and for the Trinity Park Conservancy.
What year? What year are we in Harold Simmons Park?
It's a 3-year build. So we started clearing the grounds, right? And we demolished the first building. That was the event. The clearing of the ground, the site, I should say, removing, it's Willis, if you see it, and you have, it's bail bonds, it's old industrial sheds. 50 years ago, it was a thriving community. And so there's a lot of old abandoned buildings to remove and then prep the soil for construction. And so we're clearing the buildings now. It'll take about 3 to 4 months. Sometime in early spring, we will have an official groundbreaking once all the buildings are removed. Leaving the shed, we're keeping that massive 1,000 linear feet shed. And then after the official groundbreaking in spring, it will be approximately a 3-year build. So we're looking around 2027-ish.
There's a lot of talk about parks in Dallas. Clyde Warren appears to be the standard barrier, whether psychological, economically, whatever, Clyde Warren. But then there's Fair Park. There's the zoo. There's Southern Gateway. Where does Harold Simmons Park and the Trinity Park Conservancy fit in that group of parks?
Well, Clyde Warren is the gold standard. Open, I think they're just past their 10-year anniversary. They do about $1.3 million and generate over $1 billion. And Clyde Warren has shown Dallas how a park can impact economy, its city, not so as much community because of where it's located. It's in the urban core, and so, but it has helped with more live, love, work, play in downtown Dallas. And so Clyde Warren has done a phenomenal job. And had it not been for Clyde Warren, it would have been difficult to imagine Harold Simmons Park. I am happy they're putting the park back in the Fair Park, and those guys will get it together, and it's going to be a great addition. April is my sister in crime. We both have Jamaican heritage, by the way.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I see on your book, your board there, that she was here before me. You got her in before me. I won't hold that against you. I'm second to April. Have been second to April. She started construction before me. Every time she does something good, I feel the ricochet. People say, "Did you see what April did?" So, but April is my sister. You know, it's the rising tide of parks that will provide Dallas with more green space. And look, our mayor has said, how parks are transformational and how they impact cities. Dallas, by scale though, our point of difference is strictly scale. So Clyde Warren is 5 acres, and Clyde Warren 2.0 will probably be around 8 or so. And I'm looking forward to that. April's Park, Southern Deck Park, is about 5 acres. I think the park going into Fair Park is around 16 to 18 acres. Kaleidoscope Park just opened. That's about 8 plus acres. Dolphin, Panther Island?
Fort Worth.
In Fort Worth is working, and that will be another sister or cousin park to us as well, tied to the Trinity. So something magical is happening to Dallas as Dallas grows, as Dallas Metro goes one of the fastest growing metros in the U.S., soon to surpass Chicago by population. With that growth, you need green spaces. And so the Trinity Park Conservancy is tasked with recreational value for the entire Trinity River corridor as we report up through the local government corporation. And so we have an opportunity. Willis, if we learned something after COVID, it's the value of green space. Nature. I mean, people got to get out in green spaces and connect and feel grass under their feet and see trees blow in the wind and hear birds. It just does something to our psychology and to our mind, to our mentality. And so we have an opportunity at Harold Summers Park to, I call it, create, innovate, and separate. Create, innovate, and separate. Our point of difference is scale. Our point of difference is location, being in the floodway. And yes, the river is still the very center of the park, and the floodway is still the heart of the park, and we're the only park with a river flowing through it. When Mike Rollins, then mayor, designated the park between the two Santiago Calatrava bridges, it was brilliant. When not being from Dallas, every time I saw the Cowboys play or the Mavs play, I saw the two Santiago Calatrava bridges as the destination, iconic destination. So when I got to Dallas, I said to Marcus Shropshire, I said, "Hey, I know the Cowboys play downtown, man. Take me to Cowboy Stadium." Bitter point. And Marcus was like, "Man, Cowboys don't play, downtown." And I said, "What do you mean?" I said, "Every time they play, I see the iconic bridges, right? Looks good." So it just speaks about the iconic location. Being in the floodway, being at the river. And so scale is what's going to separate us. If we do this right, Willis, we have the opportunity to be Dallas's Central Park, but we have to earn that. We have to earn that in terms of building it right, having the right blend of experiences and attraction mix and amenities. We have to earn that by being a beloved park of Dallas where Dallasites and drive markets will come to visit. We have the blueprint for it. We have the team that will do it. We have the builders that will make it happen. And so we just need all those different entities have to come together in synergy and make this happen.
So it's 2034. Where's Tony Moore?
Man, I don't know where Tony Moore is. First base first. You got to get to first base, right? You can't get a home run unless you get to first base. So my first base is get the Spark built. And it's a heavy lift, but man, Willis, we have felt, the monkey on the shoulder, the burden that we're carrying. I can't tell you how much support we've gotten by just starting the demolition, how much public support I have personally received in saying, get it done. I see things moving. You're now credible. I now believe. And so I got to get to first base first.
Yeah, because for 25 years we've heard, yeah. But you actually... You broke dirt. You broke ground.
The project has begun, and that's the definitive statement. The project has begun. And Willis, if they think they saw anything, yes, we're just, I had to from a PR point of view, I had to make a big statement with breaking ground just to signify, with the demolition.
Because all these other parks are
They're doing stuff, and nobody's hearing from us. Now, I will say we spent some time buying land, and so we had to be hush quiet on that, working with the community on that. We spent some time working with the community, making sure they're aligned with what we were doing. And West Dallas is dealing with a vicious case of gentrification. We even officially put that shovel in the ground, and that has predated us, right? But we have to deal with that, and it's the reality of that. And so, yeah, I made a big deal about the fact that we have started the demolition. We're clearing sites, but a bigger deal will be made in spring when we start the actual groundbreaking.
When you are not talking about, working on, doing Harold Simmons Park, what are you doing?
So, I got a 10-year-old and I got a 14-year-old and I got a deprived wife who's used to me being gone working on these projects. I think the last 4 big projects have just really taken me away. So it's family, man. It's spending time
They
with
like
the family.
Dallas?
They've gotten used to Dallas. I will
that's not. Yes, they like Dallas.
Well, hey, let me put it in perspective. When you have a 14-year-old that you yanked away from friends,
right.
That was the big.
That's
A guy named Walter Elcock told me when he moved at Bank of America, he had to sleep with his eyes wide open because the kids had sharp instruments. It ain't that bad for me yet, but I certainly have to make sure that I balance that out. And a couple. I'm a basketball fan, right? So I'm a huge Mavericks fan. Daryl Armstrong, assistant coach, is my Orlando guy, and so he and I were able to connect a couple of times. Love basketball, and just up the road, man. You probably don't know this about me, but I'm a car nut. So I do like racing, and I'm probably one of 3 brothers who like NASCAR, and so I do go to NASCAR races. So yeah.
If I say Dee Rose, you say what?
Force, passion, determined, executionary. It's not just vision. This project would not be where this project is had it not been for Dee Rose. No, she's supported by a great cast with Margaret Hoffman and the board. I can tell you about that board. That board is committed. I won't start calling names because I'll get in trouble. But Dee Rose is so instrumental, and she's the force behind all this.
Tanya Moore, it's 2024. You're in Dallas. We'll worry about 2034 when that time comes. Thank you for being here today, sir.
Willis Johnson, thank you for all your support that you have done for Dallas, seen and unseen. Thank you for all your support you have done for Trinity Park Conservancy, seen and unseen. And thank you for being true to me when I was coming here and telling me, hey, let me tell you. So here's what you said to me.
What did I say?
You say, let me tell you, it's a very dynamic and complex situation, a very political situation. But you said to me, but don't worry, we got your back. And you mentioned people like Jack Matthews. You mentioned a few other names. You say, we got your back, so don't worry. And that was a peace of mind. I didn't quite understand. I'll be honest, I did not understand exactly what you were referencing or the intensity you were referencing. But I did hear the end, we got your back. And so I'm certainly appreciative of that.
Tony Moore is our guest. He's the president and CEO of the Trinity Park Conservancy that is building Harold Simmons Park. Glad to have him here today.